What's up, everyone? What's up? Welcome back to another installment of Meal of the Week with Bensky Belazaire
What's up, guys? It's Edom.
and Edom XP. Let's do it. All right. So, last time we covered a couple things. Last time we covered insurrection. It was the four Wednesdays of January. So we covered the insurrection, inauguration, impeachment, and market inflation. So this week we have a couple things for you guys. But before we start, make sure you're following us on all platforms. Instagram, everybodyeats.pod, Twitter, EBE and make sure you're following us on YouTube. Everybody Eats Show, right, on YouTube. All right. So for the first topic of this week, it is Jeff Bezos, former CEO of Amazon, is stepping down, right? So I believe it was a week ago today, he made the announcement that he'll be stepping down as CEO to take up an executive chair position, right? Instead of being the CEO, he'll serve as the executive chair, which he still does have a lot of power. As executive chair, he still
It's
does
less
have a lot of
stress.
say. Yeah, but it's definitely less stress. And the CEO, Andy Jassy, my fault. That's who he is. So the new CEO of Amazon will be Andy Jassy. He's a 24-year Amazon veteran. So he's been working for the company for 24 years. And he will be the new CEO. But that doesn't take into effect until the third quarter of this year. So third quarter three starts June, July. So up until then, Bezos will still be CEO of Amazon. So this is a pretty interesting move because now Jeff Bezos will have more time and will be more focused on his space company, Blue Origin, right? So, what's your takes on that?
So, I mean, we know how Elon is with SpaceX. So, this is kind of like if you want to compete, I feel like space is definitely the next big thing. 3D printing is going to take off this year, I feel, or in the next 10 years. Um, if you're making, if you need things to get back into space, it's much easier to have it 3D printed rather than go mine for it or just, go through the long, um, all that red tape or whatever of getting the materials to you. So on top of that, it just goes to show we're kind of just coming back up there. Didn't you? I heard some people were talking about like Space Force or something like that. I don't know if that's like Elon's thing, but I'm not too sure about it. But it just definitely goes to show that we're headed back up there. And in the next 10, 15 years, who knows? Like we already have electric vehicles. So, sky's the limit.
Yeah, for sure. So a few things with that. One, for people who don't know what Blue Origin is, it is Jeff Bezos' space company. So he actually started this back in 2000. So it's been around for a while. It's just taking a little bit more news now because space travel is more recent and it's becoming more popular. But he
Oh,
started the
really?
company
Yeah.
yeah, he started the company back in 2000. Based on this article I read earlier, apparently he would spend his Wednesdays working on Space Origin. So all this time while he was running Amazon, apparently he would spend his Wednesdays working on Blue Origin. And interestingly enough, he would invest about $1 billion a year into Space Origin. So that's a lot of money that he's been working on. This is one, that's a lot of time he's been working on it, and that's a lot of money he's been putting into it. And to go off of Space Force, so Space Force is actually I believe it's a subset of the Air Force, so it's part of the US government.
Okay.
And what's interesting about that is that Space Force, so it is a government entity, and they've been working with private companies to get research and development about space travel, right? So what I saw this week was just pretty interestingly enough, Space Force slash Air Force, they had government contracts with SpaceX, so that's Elon Musk's space company, Blue Origin, which is Jeff Bezos, and two other companies, ULA, which is United Launch Alliance, and also another company, Northrop Grumman. So those apparently are about the big four space companies that the government had contracts with. So the government would literally pay these companies to help them with research and development, and in exchange, the government would get that, research and data, and also, apply to NASA and all that good stuff. So and those contracts were pretty huge. Blue Origin received about $500 million. Northrop Grumman received $972 million. ULA received $967 million within those contracts. That's a lot of money. That is a lot of money for research and development. It is. So, and something that's another interesting topic is at the end of 2020, so last December, Space Force actually ended its contract with Blue Origin and Northrop Grumman. So they had contracts for about the past 4 years. And at the end of 2020, the Air Force / Space Force ended those agreements. But then in summer 2020, Space Force renewed agreements with SpaceX and ULA. Right. So that's interesting. So you can see some of that competition that's happening.
Yeah.
I think that may be one of the reasons why Jeff Bezos maybe putting more time.
Yeah.
Maybe he stepped down, and another reason why he's going into Blue Origin, because they lost that government contract for research and development, and SpaceX gained that. So, who knows, that may be some friendly competition or not so friendly competition that's going on there, but the government is doing whatever they can to get their research and development and get more information on that. So who knows, like you said, literally, sky's the limit, no pun intended, going to shooting for the moon, literally. So, Jeff Bezos, he's not someone new to the space travel. Like I said, he's been doing this for 20 years. So now he has more time to focus on that. We'll see how Amazon is impacted by that, but I'm definitely more interested in Blue Origin. And another thing that's pretty interesting, though, well, all these companies, all those 4 companies mentioned, they are private, so you cannot invest in them directly. But I gotta do my research. I did see, I believe, ULA, that company, it is there are some public traded companies that do fund ULA. So if you do your research, you may be able to invest
somewhere.
Put your money to those companies that invest in ULA. So space travel, man, that's definitely what's going to be coming up next. So that's definitely going to be interesting
soon.
Any last points?
Nope.
So speaking of SpaceX and Elon Musk, another thing that happened this week, Tesla, right? Tesla just purchased $1.5 billion, B with a billion with a B, right? $1.5 billion worth of Bitcoin. This happened yesterday, right? So as of today's recording, this happened yesterday on February 8th. At least that's when they announced it, that they purchased $1.5 billion worth of Bitcoin, and also they'll soon be accepting it as a form of payment. So that is a huge move for not only Bitcoin, Tesla, but crypto in general. All 3 of those people are going to be eating off of that move.
And they just released today that they're working on a vehicle worth $25,000. So even more attainable price, and
for average
especially
consumer.
After just backing crypto like that, people are saying crypto's got to hit 100K. So can you imagine if you put in however much you need to get $25,000 return by the end of this year? So many Teslas are probably going to get bought, but that's speculation. But
for sure. And because of that move, Bitcoin jumped over by like 10:50, almost 11 a.m. yesterday. Bitcoin was at $44,000.
At 46 now.
Now it's at 46,000. That is a lot. So that means that one Tesla will be, you could buy a Tesla with one Bitcoin. And then by the time, they actually accept payment, who knows how many Teslas you could purchase with one Bitcoin. People have been sleeping on Bitcoin since it was like $200, $300. Even myself, you know what I'm saying? But like,
graduated high school, it was at $300.
30 something, right? And now look at that, 44,000. And people are still saying that it's undervalued, that it's still undervalued. And I've seen articles and posts and things like, oh, it's not backed by anything, it's all speculation, this, that, and the third. But if you honestly think about it, like all currency, like even the US dollar, it's not backed by anything. The US dollar used to be backed by gold, by the gold standard. But I believe it was like 1960s, 1970s. The US dollar is no longer backed by gold. Right now, we, the consumers, are the ones who give value to
To the
the
US
US
dollar.
dollar. We are the ones who say, like that's why the Fed can print as much money as they want, but when they do that, it devalues the, how the value of the dollar, right? It's not backed by anything. So when they say like, oh, Bitcoin or crypto isn't backed by anything, it really doesn't make that much of a difference between the US dollar. The bigger difference now is that because crypto is new, people don't know about it, people still learning about it. That's why people are like, like, what I'm saying, like they're skeptical or something a third. But hey, I saw a post saying like, if you think about it, even the internet back in the 90s, when the internet was coming out, people thought it was just going to be a fad. No one took the internet seriously. Everyone thought it was just going to be passing, that it wasn't going to stay. Now look at us, well, the whole world is dependent on the internet.
Beast.
You know what
A
I'm saying?
beast.
The internet runs everything. So just because it's new and you may not understand it doesn't necessarily mean that it doesn't, it's not, valuable. It doesn't mean that it can happen. I'm sure people were clowning EVs when they first heard about it, but now look at electric vehicles. In the next 5-10 years, electric vehicles are going to be running, they're going to be running the automobile and everything else.
They're gonna
So
stop selling vehicles with gas in them that take gas, and we talk about California. So
California, I want to say, was it
and
2030?
I heard another state too. I forgot where, but another state too.
Yeah, I think it's like California, like 2030 or 2035, they're gonna stop selling, gas vehicles. So, things are moving that way. So, if you want to invest in Bitcoin or crypto, not just, I mean, Bitcoin's obviously 44K. So if you don't have that type of money, there's other cryptos. You have
ETH.
Ethereum,
Yeah,
Ethereum,
ETH. Yeah.
ETH. That's another one. You have Litecoin. It's funny because Elon Musk was also hyping
Don't say
Dogcoin.
that. Don't say that.
Doggy coin. I know you
We don't
don't like
say. We don't. We
Doggy
don't. We don't. Redacted. Redacted. We don't say that here.
But no, it's actually pretty interesting because literally, like, I follow him on Twitter like almost every day for the past week. He's been tweeting about like Doggy Coin. Like he did like a poll. He was like, "Yo, like, what's going to be like the currency of the future?" It was like, dollars or Doggy Coin. You know what I'm saying? And like 76% of people voted for Doggy Coin. That's going to be the currency of the future. And then they come out with the announcement that they just purchased, 1.5 billion worth of dollars worth of Bitcoin. So
What's your doggy coin at now, huh?
Dogecoin, yo, I'm up a bit. I'm up a bit. When I purchased it, I think it was at like 4 cents, 5 cents, and now last time I checked, it was at like 8 cents. So at least it jumped up to 8 cents after that Bitcoin announcement. It jumped up to like 8 cents a coin. Where we at? Where we at right now? But hey, man, I was at 7. It's at 7 cents right now. So hey, who knows? Only time will tell. Only time will tell. But yeah, that's a really big and interesting move for Tesla. So we'll see where they continue to go.
Definitely. Once to round back to the EV trip, and I guess space too. Same thing with Tesla and Apple needing companies to make the EV chips, the technology. Some want to implement self-driving. I think the same thing goes with space. So you got to figure out like what's going to be needed to help push space initiative and whatnot. And also I think ARK Invest, I think it's made public what they trade in or what they bought for the day. I'm pretty sure you just have to Google it somewhere and you can look it up. But you could definitely take a look at like what they buy, their buying patterns, and how much of their portfolio it takes up. And then also they recently started a space ARKX, like that's their space ETF. So they're like launching that up. So that's going to be made public soon. So it's interesting.
For
It's
sure.
not just, that's one of the many companies you could look at, but it's a big name
Yeah.
out there. So
There's a lot of ways to get involved, and even like you said, like even if it's not directly through those companies themselves, like every company is going to need, someone backing them. You know what I'm saying? So when you think about like Apple, right? Even Apple's looking to, create self-driving cars, but Apple's working with like I think Hyundai or something like that.
Yeah.
Hyundai to like make cars, and they have like a bunch of other companies they're working to make their chips and making that technology. Like you said back with space travel, a lot of material for the future, a lot of material that's going to be used for space travel is going to be made by 3D printing. You know, it's easier, it's cheaper. So if you may not be able to get into those, you know, space companies, or, you know, might not get into those, you may be able to invest in some of those companies that specialize in 3D printing. So, hey, man, do what you got to do. Do your research. There's a lot of money out there, and the future is going to be interesting for definitely for that segment. So, um, that covers Tesla. That covers Tesla purchasing Bitcoin. So that leads us to our next topic. Some, you know, stocks for the week, right? So last time we were here, we were talking about market inflation, talking about GameStop, where it's at. Yo, if you check today, GameStop closed at $50.03. I want to say last time when we recorded, I think it was at like $3.90 last
That's
time we
crazy.
recorded. So, you know, exactly like what we were saying last episode with E-Man. Yo, whatever goes up must come down. Everyone was talking about hold to the moon, hold, don't hold the line, right?
Where is your God now?
Where are you now, yo? So it dropped down to $50. So I'm going to, you know, assume that it's going to continue dropping because, you know, again, like
That's
said,
history, though. I will say, yo, at the end of the day, that is history.
sure.
If you look at the chart, you're gonna see the forever spike up. That's not going away.
Yeah,
So.
for real, man. So it's more likely than not going to hit back down to that $20 it was trading, you know, regularly, and then maybe even, you know, even below that. But like we said before, you know, that company's not worth anything. It's not worth anything. It wasn't a good buy. You know, all those Reddit traders, they hyped it up. You know, again, if you made your money, shout outs to you. If you made your money, shout, like, you know, do your thing. We're actually about to have an episode with a tax, you know, professional on how to, you know, if you made money on that stock, how to file your taxes for that. Well, that'll apply for next year, right? For most likely. So how to file your taxes with that, because you are going to have to pay short-term capital gains for that. But that's a whole nother segment for, you know, regarding that. But if you made your money, congrats, do your thing. But again, that company was not worth anything, and it's no surprise that it dropped down to $50. But the Redditors, they were on something else earlier this week. Silver jumped up to like the highest prices in, I don't know if it was in history or at least in a very long time.
Silver did shoot up.
So all those Reddit traders, they turned their eyes to silver. So, you know, what's crazy is that, you know, whatever your opinions on about the Reddit traders, Wall Street bets, they do hold power to some extent. They've shown that they do have influence, and they do have power to influence and to change market prices. However, you know, whatever they choose, like what they say, with great power comes great responsibility, right?
For real, yo, with great power comes great. So, I mean, bro, please just don't mess it up for the rest of us. Like, my portfolio since that whole thing has gone back to normal, and like I'm just trying to you know, just trying to make my money, bro. Like, hopefully it's something in my portfolio, so I have that, you know, like once again in my portfolio. But I mean, outside of that, like, y'all gonna kill me, bro.
For real. So it jumped back down to $50. I'm not sure where AMC is at. I haven't looked at AMC. But you know, again, those companies weren't really worth much. It was fun.
And actually, I think 2 days after the incident, I think it was the same week we recorded, but 2 days after so that Wednesday, the week of that whole AMC nonsense, short sellers were down, I think 20 billion, I said. And then as of like last week, short sellers were down like 8 billion. So they made like 11 to 12 billion back in that quickly, you know. So in reality, you know, they do this, you know, they're used to this high risk game. They're not like, it's not nothing they're not like they're new at. So
yeah.
But I guess some people could say, hey, let the the little guy make their cash off of it, and then, you know, I just don't think that's, you know, how before I get back into it, I just don't think that's how the market should be lurking all the time. But y'all made history, though. Respect, though. I will say that.
No, for real, they did. They definitely made the ripple. They definitely made the impact. And I don't think this is going to be the last time we see something like that.
No.
So I'm interested in seeing, what happens next. Um, so we'll see. I saw something on Twitter. It was like, if you're looking to invest, one advice is that if you hear everyone talking about it, it's too late. So definitely, like, if you're looking to invest, obviously the most important thing, like we stressed last episode, make sure you're doing your research. Don't be an unintelligent, uninformed investor. That's the most important thing. And then for those market hypes, just make sure you're making smart moves if you're going to decide to put your money in it. So
Don't put in more than you like, especially for on Robinhood, bro. It looks like gambling, so you're not at a machine, bro. This is like real money that you didn't
it's real
most
life.
didn't plan on throwing away.
For real, for real. So that covers stocks. All right. So for the last segment for today, more on the political route. This is something that happened last week, which is quite interesting. So again, this is not necessarily business related, but definitely a good conversation piece. For those who may or may not have heard, freshman representative Marjorie Taylor Greene. She is representative in the GOP. She was recently punished. You can say by Democratic leaders, and was kicked off her committees for remarks that she gave. Um, what were those remarks? Well, for the past couple of years, she's been known for tweeting and having these conspiracy theories remarks regarding school shootings, 9/11, associating with the online group QAnon.
QAnon, yeah, QAnon,
QAnon. I'm
yeah,
not sure how to pronounce that.
yeah.
Um, what else? She was, yeah, conspiracy theories about 9/11, 2008 mass school shooting at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School in Parkland, Florida. So she's been known for saying some pretty wild stuff. And more recently, she was kicked off of her committee for those remarks. This spurred some debate within, Congress, within the news, about free speech. Um, is free speech being attacked? Is free speech being, is because those remarks were outlandish conspiracy theories, are those justified? It's an interesting conversation. So Edom, first, I want to hear your piece on that.
On just getting kicked out. I mean, like you've been saying, we kind of knew this would be like a thing ever since Twitter and all these other companies started banning Donald Trump off their platforms. Um, so I'm still not as surprised any per se, because we do. I mean, we publicly do this to celebrities all the time. Whenever someone makes it big or whatever, we dig up some Facebook post or tweet from 4 or 5 years ago, and they were like, "Oh, look at their past." This and the third, even to black bodies, or for black men who get shot or killed. Um, that's the first thing people do, right? So to see it starting to be applied politically, like I guess more. I don't even know how it came out, but just seeing it applied politically is just a new. Um, it's just new, at this stage, I should say, like politically at this stage is just a new thing we're probably going to need to get used to, especially after everybody started protesting and all that social justice stuff went on this summer. So I think this is just an unintended consequence of the whole thing.
Definitely. So I did read some articles um saying that she won't be the first person to be kicked off of a committee for her language or for past remarks or comments. But it does spur that conversation. What I was saying is that I'm not I would never excuse someone for, conspiracy theories about 9/11, school shootings. I believe she's had some violent remarks against members in the Democratic Party.
Yeah.
So it's not that I'm excusing her. And I do think when you're in a certain position, you do have certain responsibilities where like you have to act professional. You know what I'm saying? Um, but more my take is more on just the idea of free speech is that I think it's an interesting debate, especially now because like you said, like, you know, if you could just dig up someone's past remarks and have them, you know, punished today for things they've said in the past, you know, who's in charge of dictating what is allowed and not allowed to be said? You know what I'm saying? Like right now it's when the remarks are quote unquote seen as bad, like when it's like the good guy versus the bad guy conversation, right? It's like, oh, they said bad remarks, kick them off, right? And maybe you can call it the progressives, you can say the general public deems it as like, you know, we're shaming them as bad. But what happens when like, you know, the quote unquote good guy says something controversial? You know, what happens when, you know, you start having, you know, iffy and tough conversations and people don't like the way that, you know, people don't like what you said or what you brought up, you know?
Well, I think personally, it is unfair um, to punish someone now because, for the most part, I feel your like what you were saying back then. For the most part, not in every subject matter, but most of what you said back then kind of just reflects like at the time, like how you felt. But that's just in the case of like not the crazy stuff she was,
Yeah.
reposting and all that, but just like in a general like the general sense that most of whatever you tweeted probably back in 2014 2010 is probably not something you'd be proud of right now, so I think you should give people that grace. But in her case, um yeah, I kind of think you had this coming, especially with your history, and the platform you're holding and your party. I don't know why it took so long for them to finally do something, and even on her end, why she's all of a sudden quote unquote remorseful, even though I heard some of the stuff she was saying just sounded like BS. But
Yeah, now all of a sudden she wants to start giving apologies for.
yeah, so it just sounds like BS and stuff. And she's uh, in her case, if you can see, she's clearly not remorseful. But I think you definitely need to hold people like that to a higher standard, especially if her party ran under the whole um, pretense or guise or whatever you want to call it of being very diverse and trying to include everybody. So you can't. That's not a good look. They have to get rid of you. Cut you out. So
Yeah, you're not a good example. Not a good example, and especially like you said, like when you're in that standard, you're representing people. You're in our federal government. You definitely need to be careful what you say because you never know who you can inspire or incite, right?
yep.
You know, in a positive or negative way. So definitely, like I said, I'm definitely not in defending her or anything, but just the idea of free speech. It is an interesting topic because people argue free speech, but at the same time, like we've always been limited of what we can say to an extent, right? That's why you can't scream fire, in a movie theater, and you can't scream fire, at an airport and things like that. So the idea of free speech is definitely interesting, especially the age of social media and what they could dig up in your past. So
Yep.
we'll continue that conversation. And that leads to our final topic for today. So, as of today, of recording February 9th, the impeachment of former President Donald Trump has begun. So today's impeachment was mainly, well, today's trial was mainly to decide whether or not they should go forward with the impeachment trial, right? So Trump and his lawyers, they were trying to defend the fact that because Trump is no longer president, is it constitutional or is it a right to
Yeah.
continue with this impeachment? And the Senate had to take a vote on whether or not they were going to continue. So the Senate did vote. So all Democrats voted, and about 9 Republicans sided with those Democrats, making a majority of yes to continue with the impeachment. There wasn't really much of a debate there. Like,
Yeah, I mean,
and it's no surprise that a lot of the Republicans who were defending Donald Trump or some of the key Republicans rather that defended Donald Trump are Republicans who are planning to run in 2024, such as Ted Cruz, and I forgot the other names, but Ted Cruz is one of the main people who's been defending Donald Trump, but obviously he has, political incentives over there. So impeachment trials will begin or continue tomorrow, February 10th. So we'll see where that goes. One thing I did see is that one reason the Democrats voted to continue with this trial is, again, to show that you have to set an example for future presidents that you can't get away with this and expect
run around and
you can't start inciting violence and expect to get away with it. So we'll see where it goes, because what will actually convict him is trying to prove, did he incite that riot? It's easy to say yes, but I guess it's going to be hard to show proof. Like, what exact proof do you have to show that the president incited or encouraged that riot? They're going back to some of those tweets and some of the speeches that he made the day of.
on everything at this point.
Say it again.
Yeah, I mean, if you're gonna make a case out of it, you have to break down, probably most of what he said in the last year, especially, tweets, all the stuff. You gotta, I mean, who knows? So I heard QAnon is like, yeah, they're saying Trump planned it or something, but I mean, who knows? Like, at this point, so.
Exactly. So that's going to be what where that decision is. Like, what evidence or what proof can they give that Donald Trump was behind or directly incited them. So we'll see what evidence is presented, and to see if he gets convicted. So hopefully by next week's episode we'll have some more updates on that. So on that note, that covers this week's meal of the week. Do you have anything to add?
No, I'm good.
All right, so that is this week's meal of the week. So again, on that note, make sure you're following us on all platforms: Instagram, everybodyeats.pod, Twitter, EBEpod, and if you're watching this on YouTube, make sure to click that subscribe button. Thank you for all our supporters, all our listeners, viewers all around the world. Thank you. We love you guys' support, and we'll see you guys next week.